It was supposed to be the first quiet Christmas since my mom passed. That's why I'd rented the cabin. A little A-frame tucked away in the pines just outside Flagstaff, promised on the Airbnb listing as a snowy solitude retreat. My Ford Ranger was packed with a duffel bag, a cooler of cheap beer, and a pre-cooked turkey dinner from Whole Foods. I just wanted to be alone with the silence, to get through the day without all the fake cheer. The key was under a ceramic frog, just like the owner said it would be. The place smelled like pine needles and old wood smoke, a good smell. I dumped my bags on the rough-hewn couch and just stood there for a minute, listening to the absolute quiet. It was broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator and the sigh of the wind outside. Perfect. The first 2 days were exactly what I needed. I read old paperbacks, drank my beer, and watched the snow pile up on the deck. The only decoration in the whole place was this one old Christmas angel. It sat on the mantelpiece above the stone fireplace. She was made of porcelain, with a faded gold dress and these wide, vacant blue eyes. Her wings were dusted with what looked like glitter that had dulled over the decades. A little creepy, but it fit the cabin's vibe. I'd find myself glancing at her sometimes, those eyes seeming to follow me across the room. I told myself it was just cabin fever starting already. The odd stuff started small. On the morning of the 23rd, I woke up and the angel was facing the window, not the room. I'd gone to bed with it looking straight ahead. My heart did a little skip, but then I reasoned it out. The cabin was old. The floors weren't level. Maybe a vibration from the fridge or a passing truck made it shift. It was possible. I turned her back and didn't think much more of it. The next night, Christmas Eve, it got harder to explain. I was heating up my turkey dinner in the microwave, the beeps sounding abnormally loud in the silence. That's when I heard it. A sound like jingling, not like sleigh bells, but tiny, delicate, like the sound a charm bracelet would make. It was coming from the living room. I walked in, my socks quiet on the wooden floor. The room was empty. The angel was on the mantel, right where I'd left her. But for a second, I could have sworn I saw a single, fresh fleck of gold glitter on the dark wood below her. I wiped it up with my thumb, my hand shaking just a little. "Get a grip, Mark," I muttered to myself. "You're losing it out here." I tried to shake it off. I ate my dinner, drank another beer, and decided to turn in early. The wind had picked up, howling around the corners of the A-frame. I fell into a fitful sleep, the kind where you're not sure if you're awake or dreaming. That's when the smell hit me. I jolted upright in the pitch-black room. It was the smell of perfume, not a modern, sweet scent, but something old and powdery, like my grandmother's sachets. And underneath it, something else. Something metallic and coppery, like the smell of old pennies. My blood went cold. This wasn't my imagination. The air in my bedroom was thick with it. I fumbled for my phone on the nightstand, my iPhone 13 feeling flimsy and useless. I turned on the flashlight, the beam cutting a shaky path through the dark. The door to my bedroom was slightly ajar. I always close it. Always. That's when I heard the singing. A voice, so faint it was almost a whisper, filtering through the crack in the door. A woman's voice, humming a tuneless, discordant version of Silent Night. My heart wasn't just pounding anymore. It was trying to break out of my chest. I couldn't move. I just sat there, frozen, listening to that awful, off-key humming mixed with the faint, jingling sound. The smell of perfume and blood grew stronger. It was coming from the living room. I don't know what made me do it, some stupid, primal need to see, but I slid out of bed. I didn't make a sound. I crept to the door and peered through the crack into the main living area. The Christmas tree lights weren't on, but the room wasn't dark. A faint, sickly gold glow was emanating from the fireplace. And there, in the center of that glow, was the angel. It was off the mantel. It was standing on the floor. Its porcelain head was tilted at an impossible angle, and its tiny, painted mouth seemed to be curved into the faintest of smiles. And it was moving, not walking, but gliding, drifting just an inch above the floorboards, tracing a slow circle in the middle of the room. The jingling sound was coming from it. With every slow, floating rotation, it left a trail of that coppery, bloody smell in the air. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a creak in the floorboard. Because it stopped. The humming ceased. The jingling faded. The porcelain head, with those vacant blue eyes, slowly, mechanically, turned towards my door. It looked right at me. I didn't think. I ran. I slammed the bedroom door shut, shoving my dresser in front of it with a strength I didn't know I had. I spent the rest of the night huddled in the corner of my bed, listening. There were no more sounds. No attempts to get in. Just that heavy, perfumed, bloody silence. The second the winter sun broke over the horizon, gray and weak, I moved the dresser. The living room was empty. The angel was back on the mantelpiece, perfectly centered, facing the room, as if nothing had happened. But the smell was still there, lingering in the curtains, in the fabric of the couch. I threw all my stuff into my truck and sped down the mountain, not even bothering to lock the cabin door. I never contacted the owner. What would I say? I spent Christmas Day in a cheap motel off the interstate, jumping at every sound. I never got an explanation. I looked up the cabin's history online months later. All I found was a single, brief news article from 1978. A woman named Eleanor, the original owner, had disappeared from the cabin on Christmas Eve. She was never found. The only clue was a single, gold-sequined Christmas angel left on the mantel and a strange, coppery stain on the hearth that the police could never identify. I don't celebrate Christmas anymore. I work through the holidays now, picking up extra shifts. The silence is better than the alternative, because sometimes, when it's very quiet and the wind is just right, I can still smell that old, powdery perfume, and I know she's not in that cabin anymore. I think I brought a piece of her with me. My office Christmas party was always the same. Cheap wine, a sad platter of veggie sticks from Safeway, and forced small talk by the photocopier. I worked at a small insurance firm in a drab, 10-story building in downtown Cleveland. I hated it, but the job paid the bills. Last year, 2023, was my third one, and I'd planned my escape route the moment the invite hit my inbox. Show my face for an hour, grab a handful of pretzels, and slip out. The party was in the main conference room on the 8th floor. Tinsel was draped over the whiteboards, and someone had plugged in a pathetic, fiber-optic tree that cycled through colors in a dizzying pattern. I was leaning against the wall, nodding along to Brenda from accounting talk about her cat, when David, the office manager, clinked his glass. "All right, everyone, time for Secret Santa," he announced, a little too cheerfully. A collective, quiet groan moved through the room. I'd completely forgotten. I'd drawn a name weeks ago, Kevin from IT, a quiet guy I barely knew. I'd gotten him a generic Starbucks gift card, which was currently buried in my desk drawer. I planned to slip it into his mailbox later. One by one, people started opening their gifts. A scented candle, a mug that said, "World's okayest employee." The usual. Then David called my name. "Lena, your turn." I hadn't expected anything. I wasn't particularly close to anyone. I figured whoever had my name had forgotten too. I walked to the center of the room, feeling everyone's eyes on me. On the table sat a single, small box. It was wrapped in plain brown paper, tied with a simple red string. No tag. "Who's this from?" I asked, looking around the room. People just shrugged or shook their heads. A few mumbled, "Not me." David chuckled. "A mystery Santa. How fun. Go on, open it." A prickle of unease ran down my spine. It felt deliberate. I untied the red string, my fingers fumbling a little. The brown paper fell away to reveal a plain, white cardboard box. I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of white tissue paper, was a small, porcelain doll. It was a little girl in an old-fashioned red dress, with glossy black hair and wide, glassy blue eyes. It was beautifully made, but there was something off about its smile. It was too knowing, too fixed. "Oh, how cute," Brenda said, her voice uncertain. I forced a smile. "Yeah, thanks, whoever." I went to put the lid back on, but something caught my eye. Tucked into the folds of the tissue paper was a small, white card. On it, in neat, almost typeset handwriting, was a single sentence. "She misses you too." My blood ran cold. My mother had collected porcelain dolls. Our house was full of them when I was a kid, their dead eyes following me everywhere. I developed a full-blown phobia of them. After she died 2 years ago, I donated every single one to Goodwill. I'd never told anyone at the office about that. Not a soul. I spent the rest of the party in a daze, the doll's box feeling like a lead weight in my hands. I scanned every face, trying to find a hint, a smirk, anything. But everyone just looked normal, bored, or mildly drunk. That night, I left the doll in its box on my kitchen counter. I couldn't bring myself to throw it out, not yet. It felt like throwing it away would be admitting how much it had gotten to me. Around 2 a.m., I woke up thirsty. I padded out to the kitchen in the dark for a glass of water. As I passed the counter, I froze. The box was open. The lid was sitting neatly beside it. The doll was gone. My heart shot into my throat. I flicked on the kitchen light, my head whipping around. Nothing. The apartment was silent. I checked the living room, my bedroom, even the bathroom. No doll. I was starting to think I'd imagined the whole thing, that I'd been sleepwalking when I went to close the fridge door. And I saw her. She was sitting on the small shelf in the door, right between the ketchup and the milk. Her little red dress was perfectly arranged. Her glassy eyes were staring straight ahead. At me. A choked scream caught in my throat. I stumbled backward, my heart hammering. How? How did it get there? I lived alone. I deadbolt the door. I grabbed the doll, its porcelain cold and smooth in my hand, and I shoved it into the trash can under the sink, slamming the lid down. I spent the rest of the night on the couch with all the lights on, a knife from the block on the coffee table in front of me. The next morning, I took the trash bag, knotting it tightly, and threw it down the garbage chute at the end of my hallway. I felt a wave of relief. It was over. It wasn't over. When I got home from work that evening, the first thing I saw was it, sitting in the middle of my dining table. The same doll, the same knowing smile. It was clean, pristine, not a speck of garbage on it. That's when the real terror began. It was a game, a sick, twisted game. I'd find the doll in different places every day, propped up on my pillow, sitting on the driver's seat of my Honda Civic, staring out from my shower caddy. I installed cameras, a cheap Wise Cam from Amazon. The footage showed nothing, just static at the exact moment it must have moved. The notes started appearing, too, always in that same neat handwriting. Slipped under my door, left on my desk. Do you like our game? You can't get rid of family. She's happier here with you. I went to the police. They were polite, but I saw it in their eyes. They thought I was a hysterical, lonely woman. They took the doll and the notes, but without proof, there was nothing they could do. On Christmas Eve, I came home from a last-minute grocery run, my arms full of bags. I was so on edge, jumping at every shadow. I pushed my apartment door open, and the smell hit me first. It was my mother's perfume, Shalimar, a scent I hadn't smelled in years. And there, on the couch, sat the doll. But it was different. Its glossy black hair was now streaked with gray, exactly like my mother's was before she died. And in its lap was a new item, my mother's favorite gold locket, the one I was sure I'd buried with her. The final note was on the coffee table. Merry Christmas, daughter. I'm home. I didn't pack. I didn't call the police again. I just ran. I got in my car and I drove until I ran out of gas. I live in a different state now. I changed my number. I never went back to that job or that apartment. The police called me a month later. They'd found something in the building's basement, in a locked maintenance closet that belonged to my floor. A small cot, pictures of me, taken from outside my window, and my mother's obituary, torn from the newspaper. They never found who it was. The super said the key for that closet had been missing for years. I work from home now. I have everything delivered. But sometimes, when a package arrives, I stare at it for a long, long time before I can bring myself to open it. And I just know, that one day, the box will be wrapped in plain brown paper, and it will be tied with a simple red string. Everyone else was at parties, or wrapping last-minute gifts, or watching those old stop-motion Christmas specials on TV. Not me. I was pulling a double at the all-night gas and go on Route 17. Time and a half, plus the holiday bonus, a crisp $100 bill from the owner, Mr. Henderson. It was the only present I was getting that year, and I needed it. My daughter's bike was sitting in my closet, waiting to be assembled. The bike was for tomorrow, Christmas Day. This shift was for her. The place was a relic. Flickering fluorescent lights, a floor that was permanently sticky, and the smell of stale coffee and gasoline that had seeped into everything. By 10 p.m., I was alone. My coworker, Dave, had clocked out with a cheerful "Merry Christmas, man," leaving me with the quiet hum of the coolers and the occasional swish of a car on the wet road outside. The first few hours were dead. A couple of truckers grabbing energy drinks and beef jerky. A family in a minivan, the kids asleep in the back, their parents looking tired but happy. I envied them. I rang up their sodas and wished them a safe trip, the words feeling hollow in my mouth. Around 1 a.m., the snow started coming down for real. Big, heavy flakes that smothered the world in silence. That's when the old pickup truck pulled up. A beat-up Chevy, maybe from the 80s, painted a faded forest green. It didn't pull up to the pumps. It parked at the far edge of the lot, right under the one busted light, its engine idling rough. I watched it for a good 10 minutes. No one got out. My skin started to crawl. You develop a sense for these things on the night shift. You learn the difference between a customer and a problem. This felt like a problem. Finally, the driver's door creaked open. A man got out. He was tall and wiry, wearing a dark, heavy coat that was dusted with snow. He didn't look at the pumps. He walked straight for the door, his movements slow and deliberate. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside, bringing a blast of frigid air with him. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, his eyes scanning the aisles before they landed on me. They were a pale, watery blue, and they didn't seem to blink. He smelled like cold, wet wool, and something else underneath, something earthy, like damp soil. "Help you?" I asked, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. He didn't answer. He just started walking down the snack aisle, his boots leaving wet, muddy prints on the linoleum. I watched him on the grainy security monitor behind the counter. He wasn't looking at the chips or the candy bars. He was just pacing, a slow, predatory walk. My hand crept under the counter, my fingers closing around the cold, hard plastic of the personal alarm I kept there. He came back to the front, empty-handed. He stopped a few feet from the counter, those unblinking eyes fixed on me. "You got a phone?" he asked. His voice was a low rasp, like stones grinding together. "Payphone's outside," I said, pointing a thumb towards the door. It was a lie. There hadn't been a payphone there in a decade. He shook his head slowly, a small, unnerving smile playing on his thin lips. "No, not that kind. I need to make a call. A long-distance call." My blood ran cold. That's when I noticed his hands. They were clasped in front of him, and they were caked with dirt. Not just a little grime from working on his truck, but packed deep under his fingernails, dark and moist. I can't let you use the store phone, sir. Company policy," I stammered. His smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It's Christmas Eve. Surely you can make an exception. I need to call my family. Tell them I'm coming home." The way he said "coming home" made the hairs on my arms stand up. I glanced past him, out to the parking lot. The snow was falling heavier now, starting to cover the windshield of his truck. And that's when I saw it. In the bed of the pickup, partially covered by a tarp, was a long, lumpy shape. A shape about the size of a person. My stomach twisted into a knot. I felt the turkey dinner from hours earlier threaten to come back up. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice firmer now. "You need to leave." He just stood there, staring. The silence stretched out, broken only by the hum of the coolers and the frantic beating of my own heart. I tightened my grip on the alarm, my thumb poised over the button. Then, he nodded once, slowly. "All right then. Merry Christmas." He turned and walked out, the bell jingling again. He didn't get in his truck. He just stood in the swirling snow, looking back at me through the glass door. Then he turned and started walking down the road, disappearing into the whiteout. I didn't wait. I slammed my thumb down on the alarm. I called 911, my words tumbling out in a panicked rush. I described the man, the truck, the shape in the back. The state police found the truck an hour later. It was abandoned, stuck in a snowdrift a mile down the road. The doors were unlocked. The keys were in the ignition. The bed was empty, except for the tarp. And the dirt. A lot of dirt, as if someone had shoveled it in there. They ran the plates. The truck was registered to a farmer who lived 3 counties over. They went to his farm at first light on Christmas morning. The house was dark. The front door was unlocked. They found the farmer and his wife in their bed. They'd been dead for 2 days. The coroner said it was from a gas leak from their old furnace. A tragic accident, but they never found the man. They never identified him. They never explained the dirt in the truck or the dirt under the fingernails of the man who claimed he was trying to call his family. I assembled my daughter's bike that Christmas afternoon, my hands still shaking. She was thrilled. She didn't see the terror in my eyes. I quit the gas and go the next week. I couldn't go back, but I still see him sometimes in my dreams. Standing in the snow, his eyes unblinking, his hands caked with the soil from some unmarked grave. He's always asking to use the phone. He's always telling me he's coming home. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that he wasn't lying. He was going home. I just thank God I wasn't the one he decided to take with him.